Okay, so here's the start of our final review. So review for our final, we're going to build our study guide. This is the day one of it. So we're going to go back into our time machine and we're going to just talk about what this ddx means and how we solve this problem. So quick annotations. ddx just means to take the derivative. All right, so there are no words in this problem, but ddx just is like an action. It's telling me what to do. It says actually take the derivative of this right here. Now, how do I take the derivative of this? We can maybe use power rule and move those exponents around, but remember that this is a fraction, so this tells us that we got to use the quotient rule. So for a problem like this, I'm just going to take a quick moment and remind myself what the quotient rule is. If I have some function u over v, right, where u and v are each their own functions, we can take the derivative by actually doing u prime, the derivative of u, times v minus u v prime, the derivative of v, and then we put that all over v squared. So we had this formula. Now all we would then have to do is just identify what u and v are, take the derivatives of those separately, and then put it all together back in this order. Now one thing that we could do instead of all that, a separate strategy, was actually setting up our chart. So I'm going to set up my chart and I'm going to reference this formula as I'm doing this problem. So remember that u is going to be the top, x minus 4. V is the bottom, x squared plus 5. U prime is going to be the derivative of u. So I just got to take the derivative of x minus 4. So in this case, let's see, the derivative of 1x is just 1. It'd be x to the 0, or just 1. And negative 4 is a constant, so that's going to be a derivative of 0. So I could put plus 0 there, or really the whole derivative here is just 1. Then the derivative of x squared is 2x, and the derivative of a 5 is 0. And then remember that when we did this, we had to go in a specific order. We had to go u prime to v, here to here, and then u to v prime. So let's look at what that's going to look like, and I'll put kind of our answer over here. So let's go from u prime to v. That'd be 1 times x squared plus 5. And then we have to put a minus sign. Do not forget the minus. We're subtracting those two products. U times v prime, so x minus 4 times 2x. I like to use parentheses to show grouping and to show my multiplication there. And then finally, I have to put that all v in squared. So there's v. I got to square that whole thing. Once again, I'll use parentheses to show that I'm squaring that whole thing. Now, although this would be your derivative, I'm going to tell you that on a test, you're probably going to have to simplify a little bit more to get your answer. So start by distributing that 1. Well, that's not going to change anything, and I'm just going to leave that in parentheses for now just to kind of keep that grouped. Now I'm going to actually see if I can multiply these two things. Well, 2x times 4, negative 4, and 2x times x, that's just distributive property. So let's kind of go in that order. 2x times x. Let's move that minus sign there and leave this in parentheses. 2x times x, well, that gives us a 2x squared, because x times x is an x squared. And 2x times negative 4 is going to give us negative 8x. Just think about multiplying those coefficients, leaving the x. All over the bottom. And remember, we're trying to simplify this, so I'm actually not going to square this on the bottom. I'm only operating on the top to see if I can combine those like terms of this and this. Okay. So now I'm going to see if like anything cancels on that top with that subtraction. So I have an x squared plus 5. And now I can actually drop the parentheses because I'm ready to combine. But before I do that, let's distribute this negative sign to be a negative 2x squared. And that becomes a plus 8x. All over x squared plus 5 squared. All right, and then our last step here would be to look to see if anything cancels on the top, any combining of like terms that could happen. So let me just say real quick that we distributed a negative 1 here, and now we're going to look to combine that x squared and negative 2x squared. Well, that's just 1 minus 2, negative x squared, and then I'm just going to put this in order, plus 8x plus 5 all over x squared plus 5 squared. So this would be our final best answer, and just kind of notice how this looks compared to what we got to the start. Even though those two things are the same, we probably wouldn't see this as an answer choice for this one right here. Okay, but we would definitely see this as an answer choice, or would be much more likely to see that as an answer choice because it's the most simplified version. If I was really crazy, I could really try to factor out the top to see if anything cancels, but the numerator isn't factorable. So in fact, this is the most simplified answer, and that is a review of the quotient rule. Remember to use your chart to put it in a very specific order. Common mistakes are missing the minus sign, or not distributing the minus sign, or forgetting to square the bottom. Okay, so just kind of check that to make sure you got it. I'll see you in class.